Well, last week was all about pounds, shillings, and pence, and auctions, and sales, and enterprise value, and exit strategies, and it made me and Nas sound like a couple of investment bankers, albeit bad ones. So we wanted to get back to basics this week, get back to cricket, and the reasons that we all do this. So I'm delighted to say that Jos Buttler has joined us from Ahmedabad. Jos, welcome. First time on the Sky Cricket podcast, I think. Is it or not? What's taken you so long?
No, I think I may have made an appearance during COVID, but not been on for a while. But yeah, thanks for having me.
And you're in Ahmedabad, so we must make that clear that we're recording the day before your final ODI of what has not necessarily been a successful trip so far. You said at the start of the tour that with Brendon McCullum brought in as the new coach, you've been practicing your smile in front of the mirror. Has that been more difficult as you've gone along?
Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, the results haven't been there, but up against a really good side in their own conditions. And we've had a few chances and not really converted them and been outplayed in other parts of it. But it's been great to work with Baz. Really enjoyed spending time with him and getting to know him and letting him really lead the team and lead the guys. And I think one of his great strengths is keeping the guys pretty level and creating a really good atmosphere. So although the results haven't been there, which is disappointing, he's keep pushing us in the right direction, staying very committed to the style of cricket that we want to play, and everyone's just very aware that you've got to do it better against the top team.
You've obviously known Baz for quite some time, but obviously this is a new relationship that you're forging. How long do you think it takes to forge that relationship long term? And also, how would you compare his philosophies with Matthew Mott? Is there a definite striking difference in that dressing room?
Yeah, I think first part of that question, I think like I say, we've got a bit of a relationship already. Having known Baz for a while, played against him. Got to know him pretty well through morgues and stuff like that. So that's always a nice base to start from. And then, I think we see the game pretty similarly as well. I think, like all relationships, takes time. Working relationships. So I've really enjoyed spending time with him, picking his brains. He runs a really nice and relaxed environment, which I've been enjoying. Absolutely. Sort of myself trying to make sure that that's the mindset I came with and looked into. And I think Baz just has a really clear way that he works. He's very committed to the style that he wants to play, the environment that he wants to create. Brings a lot of conviction in that and doesn't waver from that. I think good results or bad results, I think seen from his time as Test coach, he doesn't really get blown off course from his beliefs. So I've been really enjoying that.
Do you think it'll be as easy for Baz to have the kind of immediate impact that he had with the Test team? Obviously, the Test team was a bit in the doldrums. He and Ben Stokes took over alongside Rob Key, and there was an immediate uplift in performance and results. But I suppose what I'm getting at is that part of that was because he had a very simple, or what seems from the outside quite a simple philosophy about, playing attacking cricket and trying to free the players up. That's almost baked into one-day cricket in any event, isn't it? That's everybody knows that when you play white ball cricket, that's the basis of the game. It is an attacking, free game. And so if that's his message as well, which one assumes it is, it seems to me that it might not be quite so easy to have the same kind of startling impact that he seemed to have with the Test team.
Yeah, I think, like you mentioned, I think everyone has been pushed in that direction in one-day cricket. T20 cricket has had a big impact in 50 overs and the scoring rate, and naturally batters sort of realizing what is possible. And I said it after the game the other day. I think Rohit has been had that sort of impact on the Indian side with the way he's taken the game forward in his own play and been very aggressive at the top. And so most sides are trying to play like that around the world. The contrast maybe in the sort of traditional Test game or how people view Test cricket to to where Baz and Stokesy have taken the England team, is probably not going to be as far apart as other sides in the world play one-day cricket. But I think the skill of what Baz wants to achieve is to be really clear and committed in the way that we want to play. Absolutely, you want to win tournaments and you want to take this team forward. You've got to take these guys on at their own game and execute that really well, as I said after the last match, in the way that Rohit Sharma played. And I think what Baz's great skill is trying to create the environment to allow talented players to go out and show the best of themselves. And we've certainly got a lot of really talented individuals in the team. And it's trying to give us the best platform and give the individuals the best environment to go out there and play to the best of their abilities.
That's the coach's philosophy. And you said there, you've got a lot of talent in that dressing room. No one needs to remind you that results haven't gone your way, not only on this tour, but in recent times, there's been a decline. You've lost a lot of games. As captain, can you put your finger on what's gone wrong? Is it a load of different things? If there was one thing that you'd like to correct about your side, what would that be?
I think there's a multitude of reasons why we haven't quite played as well as we'd have liked over a period of time. Be it, I don't want to sit here and make any excuses. I just think you ultimately have to play better, and you come up against the best sides. You try and build the team, build the familiarity within ourselves. The partnerships, be it partnership batting, bowling in partnerships, the collective effort in the field, and just raise. I don't think we haven't been good enough for long enough in periods of games to get the results. I think that's been the main thing, and that's what we've got to try and work out how to do that. As I mentioned, like once you get that momentum and you have the opposition under pressure, how do we keep that for longer? How do we make sure you drive that home and win games? And I think as much as you try and say that the results don't matter or try and take pressure off players like that, of course they do. That's why we're all here. We want to play games and win games for England and ultimately win tournaments. So no one wants to win as much as I do or the side does, but we're very realistic about sort of where we're at the minute as a team. Obviously, Baz has just come into this with the white ball side. An away tour to India is a tough start for that, whatever sort of cycle you're at as a side. But yeah, we're very much looking forward, trying to make sure we accelerate that learning and ultimately just play better.
You talked there about cycles, and sport obviously goes a bit like that. You have ups and downs. There are very few teams, although there have been teams, obviously, but very few where it's just you sit on a high plateau all the time. And it's obvious, there are some obvious differences from that wonderful period, I suppose, between 2015, the end of that World Cup, and 2022 when you won the T20 World Cup. Some personnel is different. Owen Morgan's not there. Johnny Bairstow, Jason Roy, Ben Stokes hasn't been playing that much. I wondered whether you'd noticed, though, with teams at different stages of the cycles, when you have that long, sustained period of success, is that drive and hunger and desire. And sometimes that drops off as a team reaches the end of that particular cycle. I wondered whether you'd noticed that, looking back at that team, perhaps of 2-3 years ago, whether you'd noticed a lessening of drive and desire and hunger.
No, I don't think so necessarily in terms of drive and hunger. I think that you mentioned that period from 2015 to 19. I think we played a hell of a lot of games all together. We played a lot of matches, all building towards 2019. And I think if you looked at the moment as sort of all-time one-day 11 of English players, you wouldn't be far off that 11. I think there's some guys who have played brilliantly for a period of time and great players, and maybe we were just coming to the end of a natural cycle in that time, maybe age and maybe a little bit of drive and hunger, as you mentioned. I can't speak for anyone else, but it never looked like that from my sense. And I think then just other stuff that impacts, COVID and the differing schedules. Suddenly you had two very sort of separate different teams because you couldn't sort of all stay together, and maybe that naturally started to lose that sort of that team in that cycle. But I think the talent is there now. It's about I think sort of breaking free of sometimes looking back. I think it's always sort of easy to look back at 2019 and 2022 and compare and say, but that's sort of, I would hope, sort of sowed the seeds for the new sort of talent and the new generations coming through that will have that drive and hunger to emulate that success and have their own success and push the team forward again.
Athletic have obviously made that all-time white ball side, by the way. Big pride to mention. Jos, what about the argument and the reasoning given for the decline in results? Is that your team and your younger players coming into the team in particular don't play enough 50-over cricket? Do you buy that? Or do you see the oppositions that you're playing? I'm talking about domestic 50-over cricket. Not sure how much South African players are playing, Indian players, etc. Where do you see that? You don't play enough. If someone said to you, well, you don't play enough 50-over cricket domestically, how are you going to learn 50-over cricket?
I do and I don't to some degree. I see that sort of some of the players aren't getting exposed to that at the minute, but I sort of think my generation sort of coming through, we were brought up on 40-over cricket, really, the Pro 40. I'd say actually had a really positive impact about, maybe getting ahead a bit more, being even more aggressive, and then everyone realizing, oh, maybe we just do that, but try and do it for 10 more overs instead of playing sort of 50-over cricket. So, of course, that experience of maybe domestic 50 overs and then coming into international cricket maybe isn't there as much. That's where I think the Lions programs are going to be really crucial for guys getting 50-over cricket under their belt in those kind of situations. And the rise of franchise cricket and T20 leagues around the world has sort of given players different opportunities and obviously taken up a lot of the calendar, which I actually think gives some guys even better exposure to pressure and different environments and sort of learning to play against the best players in the world and again in front of big crowds, obviously not in 50-over cricket, but so I think actually then the communication around sort of what you're trying to achieve as a team when guys come into this environment, and there's a lot of guys with a lot of ODI experience as well. We're making sure we're passing that on. Guys are like how you can accelerate that learning as quick as possible. And a lot of that's, done that on the bus or that at the nets at training or be it around the hotel, just discussing the game, talking about things, realizing what situations may arise. Sometimes just, realize how much time you had or looking back at, a game or two ago saying, if you were in that situation again, how would you have played it better, or would you have just done the same and hopefully executed better? So that's really important, trying to aid that learning process but ultimately you need players to feel it themselves as well and individually understand that. I don't know if I really answered your question, but
No, it was a good answer, very good, especially the Pro 40 thing. I hadn't thought of that. It was excellent.
Just before we turn to this attention to the specifics of the India tour and maybe then throw it forward to the Champions Trophy, just one more question about Brendon McCullum, if I may, because clearly the schedules have slightly eased and that's allowed Rob Key to unify the roles. And it seems that there's quite a lot of players who are multi-format players. So they're almost bringing the players from the test team and the white ball teams together, players like Ben Duckett, Joe Root, and they're playing across maybe ODIs and tests. What do you, that's going to be a challenge for Brendon McCullum as coach in terms of, what he's had when he was just a test coach was these very intense periods of test cricket and then very long periods where he could perhaps sit back, plan, about what's to come. He won't have that same opportunity now. And do you see that as, it seems to me that it's a real challenge and, how well he overcomes that, who knows? But, is that a potential danger down the line that, players and therefore coaches who are multi-format and across formats just become very jaded, by the amount of cricket and the schedule that is unrelenting, really?
Yeah, I think Baz and Kesey will be smart with that about maybe the odd tour or the odd series. someone in the coaching staff dipping out, or some of the players getting rested at certain times, and then trying to cherry pick when they feel are the most important times that you pick from a completely blank canvas and everyone is available. So I think in I always used to think, looking back, I thought, you needed two coaches because it was sort of like you said, the schedules and those kind of things. But I think maybe actually the teams became very, very separate, and then the odd player coming across and different stuff. Maybe you're just getting two different environments. Whereas I think, now I look at it and go like, hey, you got one guy in charge who's overseeing everything, and he will then be the one overseeing what moment is the time that he needs X player here, and they can have this series off, or what time to give one of his coaching staff a bit of a break. And no, I think like Baz has said, if he was taking it all on at once, maybe it would have been difficult, but he's had 2 years or so of test cricket. He's got to learn about English cricket, he's got to learn about the system, some of the players, how it all works. So maybe it's an easier transition now to take it on, um, the whole thing with white ball cricket as well, as to maybe it would have been right at the start.
And a sense of India. Let's turn to the tour and some of the games itself. I mean, we've obviously not been there. We've been watching from home. Lots of chat in world cricket about 50-over cricket maybe having challenges and not being as popular as it was. You've had a couple of ODIs on the back of the T20 games. Do you get the sense that there's still that tremendous enthusiasm? I mean, the crowds look fantastic at Cuttack the other day.
Yeah, I do. I do sense that enthusiasm. I think that's always if you can get the best players on the pitch and the games have relevance. Obviously, these have a huge relevance leading into the Champions Trophy, and like I say, you're always going to get good crowds out here coming to see guys like Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli. They just want a glimpse of these guys. So, but yeah, yeah, for me and my generation, I see 50-over cricket as a great game. I always enjoyed it personally because, I felt like you had long enough to bat, as opposed to sort of a T20 when you started off in the middle order. Some days you may get 20 or 30 balls, and that's a long knock. So I always enjoyed 50-over cricket for a longer time to influence the game. And I always look back and being brought up on sort of the 99 World Cup, and went to South Africa in 2003 and was at the final then. So, and I think that 4-year break and winning a World Cup, that sort of seemed like, the premier one-day tournament and white ball tournaments. Whether, the new generation of players and the 20-year-olds coming through now, like you say, they're not being exposed to 50-over cricket so much domestically now, whether they still feel that, I don't know. But I still think it's a really interesting game. I think there's if you get good wickets, you get an interesting balance between bat and ball, or like I say, scoring rates are very high, and the defensive skills of bowlers come out, or the wicket taking ability of the bowlers, to try and stem run rates. And yeah, I think you see some really interesting games in 50-over cricket. So I still quite enjoy the format, to be honest.
And your team there, you've gone with quite an attack that's high pace. That's another, obvious thing that Brendon McCullum likes. What about the opportunity to play another spinner? I know Liam Livingston will bowl, offies and leggies, but the opportunity to play another spinner alongside Adil Rashid. Why have you not gone down that route?
Yeah, I think for that reason, like you say, we have Liam Livingston and Ruti obviously can bowl off spin as well. Obviously Jacob Bethel was in the squad, and his left arm spin, and it was obviously a really attractive option there in the middle order, left hand player as well. So yeah, the selection guys, we like that high pace, trying to find ways to take wickets through that. Rash is obviously a gun leg spinner, and as a wicket taking bowler, and then supplement that with the other guys. And I think that finding that balance, that we have a long enough batting order to play the way that we want to play, and give guys at the top the confidence to be ultra aggressive with the guys behind them. And then, like you say, trying to find ways to take wickets to put the opposition under pressure.
That's the bowling of spin. What about the playing of spin? I've actually thought in the last decade, England's playing of spin in white ball cricket has been fantastic. You've been belting it out of the ground. You've been completely different from our era where we completely hit a wall. No one needs to tell you that in that middle order in the subcontinent, the trial by spin is incredibly difficult. And everyone focuses on that and the spinners' wickets that Jadeja, etc., are getting. But isn't it also incumbent on that top three that if they get in and use the power play, which is often the best time to bat, that when spin comes on, you've mentioned Rohit's innings the other day, that they then take that through and see that on? Are they conversations you're having? Because that's the hard yards. That's when the difficult part of the game starts for me.
Yeah, absolutely. They're things that obviously we want to do, and I think obviously individually people want to get big scores, and any time that you sort of have success, that guys in your top four are scoring hundreds. Really, I think that's the thing that you want to look, and that's why I think is such a good format for batters. There's guys in that top four who should be looking to get scores of 150. That kind of the game gives you that opportunity. So yeah, anytime guys get in, you obviously want them to go on and go big. And obviously, it's the skill of middle order players, and that you coming in this part of the world, you got to start your innings against spin and start well. So I think there's a few things that in this part of the world, if you get a couple of quick wickets, the crowd is loud. It feels like things are created. So I think make sure you're trying to just play the ball, not trying to play the situation and create things that aren't there sometimes. And I think that again comes from experience or understanding of situations, and like I say, that the game has always got that momentum and the pendulum shifting in different ways. And I said before, when you have that momentum and when you've got it, how can you extend that period for longer? Like say, be it batters taking their innings longer, keeping the opposition under pressure for longer. Like I say, I think Salt and Duckett have started those two power plays fantastically well. Some brilliant scores, obviously a run out in the first one, sort of really handed back the momentum. But yeah, obviously, and those two guys want to go on and get big scores, and I think that's the thing that everyone's very aware of in 50 over cricket, that you can go on and make really big contributions.
Nobody knows India better than you, really, given the amount of time that you've spent there in the IPL, and we've been focusing very much on England. But what about India as well? I mean, they're at an interesting stage of their 50 over development, with some undeniably great players coming towards the last part of their career, and a lot of young players pushing who can't quite get in the team. I mean, the depth in Indian cricket seems staggering to me, and presumably that doesn't come as a surprise to you after 15 years or so of the IPL, in which things have been absolutely transformed.
Yeah, absolutely. There's more depth here than anywhere in the world. That's obvious to say. I think the IPL has been an unbelievable academy for that, for local players here to, like we mentioned, experience huge crowds, experience huge pressure. I don't think any of us can quite understand the weight of expectation that is on these players out here. These guys are A-list celebrities, and huge expectation to go out and score runs, and huge competition. Like you say, you can only play 11 guys, and they could easily put out 2 international teams, I would say. If you looked at the T20 side that we played at the start and to this side, there's quite a few different players. So yeah, they're a top side. They're always going to produce great cricketers. And like you said, that's why it's a really tough challenge coming here and playing against some, say Rohit and Virat, be two of the best ever ODI players to have ever played the game. So yeah, it's always going to be a tough challenge. But like I said, it's not a surprise that they're going to produce brilliant cricketers. And like I said, I think you look at the T20 side, they've got ready-made guys to step up and become the next superstars, and even more people behind them to do it again.
And the next tough challenge, Champions Trophy. It's a tournament that hasn't been around since 2017. The best against the best. No easy games. I mean, your group is Australia, Afghanistan, and then South Africa. You know better than anyone, Afghanistan in these conditions in Pakistan conditions are going to be difficult to beat. Tough group, tough competition.
Yeah, it is a really tough competition, and there's no sort of easing into it. It's a straight away. You're under pressure to play well and against top sides, and that's what you expect. Obviously, South Africa, Australia, two excellent teams over time, and Afghanistan are a brilliant side. I think sometimes under-respected, but I think the sort of 2023 World Cup that they had and the talent that they possess, I think they're now getting the respect they deserve. So it's going to be a great challenge. Absolutely, making sure that we want to finish well here in the last ODI and absolutely learn the lessons that we'll take from here and regroup and refresh and look forward to what's going to be a great challenge of the Champions Trophy.
I mean, it seems to me that that's where you are judging yourselves, now that the ICC events is virtually one every year, whether it's a Champions Trophy, a 50-over World Cup, or a 20-over World Cup. You've got an ICC tournament almost every year. And it seems that while England's test team are judged against the rankings, that the white ball team is judged on, ICC events and World Cups. But in 50-over cricket, not so much T20 cricket, but in 50-over cricket, there's always been a very strong correlation between form running into those World Cups and the outcome of World Cups. So you can't completely overlook results in bilateral cricket, can you? I'm thinking of what Ben Duckett said the other day. He said, we don't care if we lose 3-0 as long as we beat India in the Champions Trophy. I mean, I think we all know what he's trying to say. He's not saying we don't care if we lose. These games are irrelevant, but that the Champions Trophy is our main goal. But you do need to have good form running into these tournaments, particularly the slightly longer white ball games, in order to do well in them, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you want the results, like you said before. In this, I want to win games of cricket. That's what we enjoy doing. That's what breeds confidence throughout the side. And you do need results to confirm that you're on the right path and the messages that you're giving to the team, and the sort of the style of cricket that we want to play and that we want to execute is the style that's going to give us results. So of course you want to win games of cricket. You want to go into tournaments feeling on top of the world and feeling confident. So I don't think anyone disrespects the results or say they don't care if we win or lose. I think sometimes there's a bit of a trick of the mind, like you say, to sort of try and take away the fear of results, I guess, to allow guys to have freedom to play. But anytime you walk onto the field, you're trying to win a game of cricket.
Apologies, we've been a bit doom and gloom here, probably because results haven't quite gone your way in India. Tell us what excites you about your team. Going to Pakistan for a Champions Trophy, tell us as captain, when you step into that dressing room and you look around, what excites you about that team that you think, we can still win world events?
Yeah, I think just the talent in the room. I think that's so exciting. I think they said the partnership at the top is very difficult to bowl at. They've started really well here. I think Root's obviously one of England's great ever players. Harry Brook's going to be that as well. And then we've got some fast bowlers and England's greatest ever leg spinner in one-day cricket. So there's plenty to look forward to.
Could I ask you about the Afghanistan game? You've been pretty clear that that you're going to play the game, and the board have made that decision as well. Have you been happy that you've had that clarity from the board? I'm thinking of poor old Nass there, who 20 years ago was left hanging ahead of the game in Zimbabwe. And I remember, not that I was there, but I remember that the toll and the stress that it took on him. Whereas this time it seems to have been handled a little bit differently, that the board have taken, they're the ones who've taken responsibility to say what the team will be doing. Have you been, in a way, relieved that almost that's been taken out of your hands?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's been a few lessons learned there from Nasser's experience. Yeah, and I think it's been dealt with well. I think it's obviously not a situation that you want to be put in, and obviously we're very aware of the terrible situation for the women in Afghanistan at the moment. I spoke to Mohammed Nabi actually about sort of cricket in Afghanistan and what it means to the people, and how boycotting a match would just be take away so much joy and that they really love and care for, and gives them so much hope. So I'm really glad that the board have made that decision, that we'll play the game, and hopefully it can be a great match and bring the people of Afghanistan a lot of hope and joy and enjoyment watching their team play.
And the challenges of playing in Pakistan, I'm talking about pitches. They're generally very, very good pitches. We've already seen in the triangular that's going on out there, New Zealand chasing down a score comfortably. Where are you? Lahore, Karachi, Lahore, I think. The challenges of playing white ball 50 over cricket in Pakistan?
Yeah, I think it's going to be new for a lot of us. Some of the guys will obviously
Ash,
play.
when did you play last there? One day cricket in Pakistan, Chris?
I don't think I've ever played in Pakistan,
Oh, there
to
you
be
go,
honest. Obviously, we had a T20 tour there in 2022, but I don't think there's any 50 over cricket very recently. The games I've played have been in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Yeah, I think sort of skiddy wickets, that sort of shiny, skiddy lower bounce, a bit Sharjah-like, I guess, is what I'm being told. And I think that, yeah, obviously it's that tri-series going on at the moment. Like I say, what do you need from teams? Guys getting hundreds, going on and making telling match contributions. So that is obviously going to give success, and then finding ways to take wickets on those surfaces. So that's why we've gone with high pace and leg spin.
Can I ask about more generally as well? You're 34 years of age now, and you've been captain in England in white ball cricket for a few years now, and both of us know that, captaincy is not always straightforward, particularly if results aren't going. And how are you in, where is your career at 34? Are you still enjoying it as much as you ever were? Are you still as driven and as hungry to succeed? And are you enjoying the internationals? You play a lot of franchise cricket now. You just come from South Africa. You'll go to the IPL. There's this interlude of international cricket. Does it still hold the same, attraction that it always did for you?
Yeah, it does actually. And I think, yeah, quite simply, anytime you sort of look at the kit or you look at the cap and stuff, you sort of realize what it means to play for England. And absolutely at 34, I'm sort of very aware that, I'm very much closer to the end than I was to the start. And, you want to make that sort of last forever and really enjoy these the last few years, I guess. And I think that's been really refreshing to talk to Baz about. I think he was explaining to me about his own career, really sort of when he got to this sort of stage, and he sort of had sort of actually what was sort of the most enjoyable time of his cricket career. He sort of wasn't trying to hold on to anything or protect anything. He wanted to just really embrace everything, throw himself into it, really help the younger players, coming through and shape it and sort of finish, really content and really enjoying the last few years, as opposed to sort of trying to hang on. And that's certainly how I want it to be. I don't think you always change. I think that's the end. People I can't say I'm the same person I was now than I was 5 years ago, and because life changes. I've got a family and children, and so it is different, absolutely. But the enjoyment of playing for England and that pleasure is very much still there. And then, like say, new things happen. Sort of Brendon McCullum coming in. That's a new experience, a new motivation to try and really sort of thrive and sort of make the best of that for me, and really buy into Baz's way of seeing the game and seeing this stage of someone's career. So yeah, lots to look forward to, I think. But I'm very aware that if at some point someone says that it's time to move on, or if it'd be better now if someone else was captain, then I'm very, very content that someone might say that. So but yeah, as long as I'm doing it and as long as I'm enjoying it, then I'll keep giving it my best shot.
I know Ath jokingly mentioned the smiling thing, but have you always been able to compartmentalize the game and family and away from the game and put it into some kind of context, or do you take baggage with you? I know I've struggled, for example, if we were playing badly, I was grumpy at home or whatever. Are you someone that just parks all your professional life and is able to put the game of cricket into some kind of context?
I think at different stages of my career, I've found that easier and harder than others. I'm always sort of, when people finish and they sort of like, oh, I wouldn't change anything of my. I'm like, there's loads of things I'd change, loads of and loads of times that I didn't enjoy that I would change, but or maybe they're the things, the experiences you go through that make the good times even better. But yeah, I think certainly there's times where I'm really good at that. I'd sort of use an analogy of picking up the paper and starting at on the front instead of the sport pages. And by the time you get to the sport, you sort of realize it's not the be all and end all. It gives you a bit of perspective. Obviously, children do that as well. You know, they don't care if I score any runs or not. But yeah, definitely, I'd say that the last World Cup in India definitely really hurt, and it took me quite a while to sort of find, like you say, maybe that enjoyment or being able to let it go for a while. But I certainly feel like I've been able to do that now and look forward. And let's say someone like Baz coming in, it's a shot in the arm, and it's something new and exciting for me, and that's given me a lot of energy.
And you're back there for the final game then, Ahmedabad, where the World Cup of 2023 began, really, against New Zealand. What kind of a crowd are you expecting for this final ODI? Because if you get a big one there, it could be quite a thing.
Yeah, well, I imagine it would be a big crowd. I don't know how many tickets they've sold or anything, but obviously a 100,000 seater stadium. Yeah, I'm sure, you know, like you say, when you sort of you want to play and you want to win, and they're the things. But even so, it's going to be a great experience to play against India there with a full house, hopefully.
And you're now a Gujarat Titan, aren't you? So 100,000 people shouting your name tomorrow. You're going to get a hero's welcome to the middle, surely.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll get the biggest cheer out of anyone, I'm sure, won't I? So,
The one thing I remember in the World Cup is the silence when Virat Kohli got out there against Australia. It was an unbelievable thing, really. You could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, and obviously good luck in the final ODI and in the Champions Trophy to come. Myself and Nasser flying out next week, so no doubt we will catch up with you. First game is in Lahore, and then you finish off in Karachi. So best of luck, and thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cheers, Job.
Thanks, Scott.